Dr. Elena Chen floated in the observation deck of Europa Station, watching Jupiter's great red spot swirl through the thick ice moon's thin atmosphere. The research facility hummed quietly around her, filled with the voices of 847 scientists and their families who had made this frozen world their home. They came from every nation on Earth, united by one dream: to unlock the secrets of faster than light communication. Elena pressed her hand against the cold viewing window. Back on Earth, her mother, Ambassador Sarah Chun, was probably arguing with alien diplomats again. The Galactic Council had made their position clear. Humans were not allowed to develop this technology. But Elena and her team were so close to a breakthrough. Just a few more weeks of testing, and they could send messages across the galaxy instantly. Dr. Chun, we're getting some unusual readings from the quantum array, called Dr. Martinez from the main lab. Elena pushed off from the window and glided through the low-gravity corridors to join him. The quantum entanglement chamber glowed with soft blue light. For months, they had been testing ways to maintain stable connections across vast distances. The theory was simple enough. If two particles could be linked across space, information could travel between them instantly, no matter how far apart they were. "Show me the data," Elena said. Settling into her workstation, Dr. Martinez pulled up the readings on his screen. "We achieved stable entanglement for over 6 hours this time. The connection held even when we moved one particle to the far side of the station." Elena felt her heart race. This was it. This was the breakthrough they needed. Run the test again, but this time, alarms screamed through the station. Red emergency lights bathed the corridors as Elena and Dr. Martinez rushed to the command center. Station Commander Walsh was already there, his face pale as he stared at the tactical display. "Commander, what's happening?" Elena asked. Walsh pointed at the screen. 12 ships had appeared in Europa's orbit, their sleek hulls gleaming with the blue-black metal that marked them as Vorthik vessels. The Vorthik were the Council's enforcement arm, feared throughout the galaxy for their ruthless efficiency. "They're demanding immediate surrender of all research materials and evacuation of the station," Walsh said. His voice was steady, but Elena could see the fear in his eyes. "They can't do this," Dr. Martinez whispered. "This is human space. They have no authority here." But Elena knew better. The Galactic Council didn't care about human laws or human space. They had spent decades keeping humanity trapped in their own solar system, using economic pressure and technological embargoes to maintain control. Now they were done with subtle methods. Walsh activated the communication system. "Vorthik vessels, this is Europa Station. We are conducting peaceful scientific research under Earth jurisdiction. You have no legal authority to..." The transmission cut off as the lead Vorthik ship fired. The plasma beam carved through Europa Station's main habitat module like a hot knife through ice. Atmosphere rushed out into the vacuum, carrying with it everything that wasn't bolted down. Elena watched in horror as the observation deck, where she had stood just minutes before, disappeared in a ball of fire. "All hands to emergency stations," Walsh shouted over the continuing alarms. "Seal the remaining modules. Send a distress call to Earth." But the Vorthik weren't finished. More beams lanced out from their ships, targeting the station's power core, communication array, and life support systems. They weren't trying to capture the station. They were destroying it completely. Elena ran through the corridors, helping to evacuate researchers from the damaged sections. She found families huddled in emergency shelters, children crying as their parents tried to comfort them. These weren't soldiers or weapons dealers. They were scientists, teachers, engineers. Their only crime was curiosity. The station shuddered as another section was vaporized. Elena made it to an escape pod bay just as the artificial gravity failed. She floated in the darkness, watching the emergency lights flicker and die through the small porthole. She could see the Vorthik ships methodically destroying every part of the station. They worked with calm precision, as if they were demolishing an old building rather than murdering hundreds of people. Elena activated her personal communicator, hoping against hope that someone could hear her. "This is Dr. Elena Chun on Europa Station. The Vorthik are attacking us. They're killing everyone. Please, someone has to..." The communication pod's hull cracked under the stress of decompression. Elena's last thought was of her mother, wondering if anyone would tell her what really happened here. The Vorthik finished their work in less than an hour. When the rescue ships from Earth arrived 3 days later, they found only wreckage and ice. No survivors. No bodies. Nothing but the scattered remains of humanity's most advanced research facility. The Galactic Council's official statement was broadcast across all frequencies. The illegal research facility on Europa has been neutralized to prevent dangerous destabilization of galactic security. The Council regrets the loss of life, but reminds all species that violations of technological containment protocols will not be tolerated. Ambassador Sarah Chun sat in her office on Earth, reading the casualty report with trembling hands. 847 names. Scientists, engineers, technicians, cooks, maintenance workers, children. Her daughter's name was listed among them, along with a note that no remains had been recovered. Admiral Marcus Kane found her there 6 hours later, staring out the window at the star-filled sky. The head of Earth's Defense Force was a tall, gray-haired man who had spent his career preparing for a war he hoped would never come. "Sarah," he said quietly, "I'm sorry." She didn't turn around. They called it a surgical strike. Surgical, as if murdering 847 people was some kind of medical procedure. Kane placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "The president has called an emergency meeting. All department heads, all military commanders. We need to discuss our response." Now Sarah did turn, and Kane was startled by the cold fury in her eyes. "Our response should be simple, Marcus. We kill them all." Kane had known Sarah Chun for 20 years. She was a diplomat, a peacemaker, someone who believed in negotiation and compromise. But as he looked at her now, he realized that woman was gone. The Council had killed her along with everyone else on Europa Station. "The meeting is in 1 hour," he said. Sarah nodded and turned back to the window. "Tell them I'll be there. And Marcus? Tell them we're done pretending to be civilized." Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council celebrated their successful action. The humans had been taught a lesson about their place in the universe. Order had been restored. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. The emergency meeting took place in the deepest bunker beneath the United Nations building in New York. Presidents, prime ministers, and military commanders from every major nation sat around a circular table, their faces grim in the blue glow of holographic displays. Admiral Kane stood at the head of the table, a remote control in his hand. Behind him, a massive screen showed the wreckage of Europa Station floating in the cold darkness of space. "Ladies and gentlemen," Kane began, "for 30 years, we have followed the Galactic Council's rules. We accepted their trade restrictions. We agreed to their technology bans. We smiled and nodded when they told us we were too dangerous to join galactic civilization." He clicked the remote, and the screen changed to show the names of Europa Station's victims. "This is what our cooperation got us." President Williams of the United States leaned forward. "What are you suggesting, Admiral? We're one planet against 12 interstellar empires. They have weapons that can destroy whole worlds." Kane smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "That's what they think. Dr. Reeves, would you please explain what we've really been doing for the past 3 decades? Dr. Elizabeth Reeves stood from her seat at the far end of the table. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes, but when she spoke, everyone listened. As head of the classified Xenotech division, she knew secrets that could change everything. Project Damocles began the day we first made contact with the Galactic Council, she said. Every trade ship that visited Earth, every diplomatic mission, every cultural exchange, we were learning from them, studying them, taking apart their technology piece by piece. The Chinese premier frowned. But the technology gap is not as large as they believe, Dr. Reeves interrupted. The council species have been spacefaring for thousands of years, but they've grown lazy. Their technology is old, standardized, predictable. They assume no one can match them because no one has tried for centuries. Kane activated another display. This one showed the interior of a massive underground facility. Rows of sleek ships filled the hangar, their hulls black as space itself. This is Facility 7, built into the asteroid series. We have 11 more just like it, hidden throughout the solar system. Kane's voice grew cold. Each one contains 40 ships designed specifically to kill Council vessels. We call them the Icarus Fleet. The Brazilian president stared at the screen. How is this possible? Our ships barely made it to Mars 20 years ago. Dr. Reeves pulled up technical specifications. Stealth technology reverse-engineered from captured Vorthix scout ships. Quantum drives that can outrun anything in the Council fleet. Weapons that can punch through their shields like they're made of paper. She paused. Most importantly, artificial intelligence systems that can think and react faster than any biological pilot. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Russian premier was the first to speak. You're talking about starting a war we could lose. If we fail, humanity dies anyway, Ambassador Chun said quietly. It was the first time she had spoken since the meeting began. The Council made that clear at Europa. They will not allow us to advance. They will not allow us to grow. They will keep us trapped in this system until we stagnate and die. Kane nodded. The Council sees us as a threat because we develop technology too quickly. Because we think differently. Because we don't accept their rules about what's possible. He gestured to the images of the Icarus ships. They were right to be afraid. The German chancellor raised her hand. Assuming we can build these ships, how do we use them? The Council has fleets scattered across dozens of star systems. That's where Project Icarus gets interesting, Dr. Reeves said. She brought up a new display showing the galaxy with hundreds of red dots scattered across it. For 20 years, our automated survey probes have been mapping Council space. They think they're asteroid mining equipment. Actually, they're weapons platforms, waiting for activation codes. The room erupted in surprised voices. Kane raised his hand for silence. Each probe carries a small fusion warhead and a quantum communicator, he explained. When we give the signal, they can strike Council installations simultaneously across the galaxy. Communication relays, supply depots, military bases, all destroyed in the first hour of the war. The Indian Prime Minister looked skeptical. You're saying we can cripple 12 interstellar empires with mining equipment? Not cripple, King corrected. Blind and confuse. The real damage will be done by the Icarus fleet. He clicked to another image showing a detailed battle plan. While the Council is dealing with infrastructure attacks, our ships will strike their command vessels and fleet concentrations. Fast, hard, and without warning. Dr. Reeves added more technical details. Our ships can quantum jump directly into enemy space without using their hyperspace lanes. We can appear anywhere, anytime, without detection. By the time they realize we're there, half their fleet will be destroyed. The French president shook her head. This is madness. Even if it works, millions will die. Millions already died at Europa, Ambassador Chen said, her voice like ice. The Council chose war when they murdered my daughter and 846 other innocent people. Now they get to live with the consequences. Kane brought up the final slide. It was a timeline stretching 3 months into the future. We need 90 days to move all ships into position and activate the probe network. During that time, we maintain normal diplomatic relations. We smile. We apologize. We ask for mercy. His expression hardened. And then we killed them all. The room fell silent again. These were world leaders who had spent their careers avoiding conflict, seeking peaceful solutions. But as they looked at the images of Europa Station's wreckage, they all reached the same conclusion. President Williams spoke for all of them. "What do you need?" "Complete secrecy," Kane replied. "No leaks, no hints, no changes in our public behavior. The Council must believe we're broken and helpless until the moment we strike. And after we win?" the Brazilian president asked. Kane's smile was cold as winter. "After we win, there won't be a Galactic Council anymore. There will be a human alliance, and the survivors can choose whether to join it or face the same fate as their former masters." As the meeting broke up, Ambassador Chun remained in her seat, staring at the star charts. Kane approached her cautiously. "Sarah, are you sure about this? Once we start, there's no going back." She looked up at him, and he saw something in her eyes that made him step back. It wasn't grief anymore. It wasn't even anger. It was the cold calculation of someone who had learned exactly what she was capable of. "My daughter died trying to help humanity reach for the stars," she said. "The Council killed her for it. Now I'm going to make sure they never kill anyone else ever again." Kane nodded and walked away, leaving her alone with the star charts and her plans for revenge. Outside the bunker, the world continued its normal routines, unaware that in 90 days, everything would change forever. The countdown to war had begun. The Galactic Council Chamber was a massive crystal dome floating in space above the neutral world of Nexus Prime. Representatives from 12 species sat in a perfect circle, their various forms arranged according to ancient protocols that had governed galactic politics for over 2,000 years. Councillor Jecht of the Vorthek hegemony stood at the center podium, his reptilian form towering over the other delegates. The scales on his neck flared with satisfied colors as he delivered his report on the Europa incident. "The human research facility has been completely neutralized," he announced, his translated words echoing through the chamber. "All dangerous research materials were destroyed. The contamination threat has been eliminated." Councillor Mervyn of the Crystalline Confederacy shifted uneasily in her seat. Her crystalline form caught and reflected the chamber's lights as she spoke. 847 deaths seems excessive for a research facility. Jack's neck scales darkened with dismissive colors. The humans chose to populate their illegal facility with civilians. The responsibility for those deaths lies with them, not us. The other councillors murmured agreement. This was how the council had maintained order for millennia: swift, decisive action against threats, regardless of the cost. The humans would learn their place, as others had before them. "Have the humans responded to our action?" asked Councillor Vex of the Mechanic Collective, his robotic voice clicking with electronic precision. "They have issued various protests through diplomatic channels," Jecht replied. "Standard primitive behavior. Emotional outbursts and meaningless threats." Councillor Keth of the Aquatic Union made a bubbling sound that translated as laughter. "Let them rage. What can they do? They cannot even leave their own star system without our permission." That's when the message arrived. The communication appeared simultaneously on every display in the chamber, overriding the Council's security systems with embarrassing ease. A simple text message in standard galactic script. "You have 72 hours to surrender the individuals responsible for the Europa, massacre and dissolve the containment protocols." This is not a negotiation. The chamber fell silent. Then Jecht began to laugh, a harsh, rasping sound that his translator rendered as contemptuous amusement. "The hairless apes threaten us?" he said, his scales now bright with mockery. "A species that has not even achieved true faster than light travel dares to make demands of civilizations that ruled the stars when their world was still cooling." Counselor Mervyn leaned forward in her crystalline throne. "Perhaps we should consider their request." "Humans can be unpredictable. Unpredictable like children with chemical explosives," Jecht interrupted. "Dangerous to themselves and those nearby, but hardly a threat to powers beyond their reach." Counselor Drac of the Hive Mind spoke with the voice of billions. "The humans must be taught the consequences of defiance. Our authority cannot be questioned." The vote was unanimous. Not only would the Council refuse the human demands, they would launch a full pacification operation. The combined fleet would blockade human space and begin systematic occupation of their outer settlements. Humanity would be stripped of all advanced technology and reduced to a pre-industrial state. "Deploy the third battle group," Jecht ordered as the session ended. 200 ships should be more than sufficient to handle anything these primitives might attempt. As the counselors dispersed to their ships and homeworlds, none of them noticed the small maintenance drones working throughout the station. Devices that had been placed months earlier, disguised as routine upgrades to the facility's systems. Devices that were now recording everything and transmitting data through quantum channels that the Council sensors could not detect. The 72-hour countdown began on Earth. Admiral Kane stood in the command center beneath Cheyenne Mountain, watching displays that showed the movement of Council fleets throughout the galaxy. Dr. Reeves sat in a bank of monitors, her fingers dancing across quantum keyboards that existed in several dimensions simultaneously. "The third battle group is moving into position around Pluto," she reported. 200 ships, just as our intelligence predicted. "And our assets?" Kane asked. "All Icarus ships are in position. Probe network is active and awaiting orders. Quantum communication links are stable across all 17 target systems." Dr. Reeves paused. "Admiral, are you certain about this? Once we begin, there will be no going back." Kane looked at the countdown timer floating above the main display. 18 hours and 37 minutes remaining. "Dr. Reeves, do you have children?" She nodded. "2 daughters. Both engineers." "Then you understand why we can't go back," Kane said quietly. "The Council made their position clear at Europa. They will never allow humanity to advance. They will never allow us to grow. They see us as a disease to be contained." Through the quantum communicators, reports came in from human agents throughout Council space. Fleet movements, defensive positions, command structures. 30 years of careful intelligence gathering was about to pay dividends. Ambassador Chun entered the command center, flanked by President Williams and the other world leaders. They had come to witness the beginning of a war that would reshape the galaxy. "Any word from the Council?" President Williams asked. "They're mobilizing the largest fleet in galactic history," Kane replied. "They intend to make an example of us." Chun looked at the tactical displays showing Council forces gathering like storm clouds around human space. "Good. The bigger the fleet, the more ships we can destroy in the opening attack." The countdown continued. Around the galaxy, automated systems awakened from decades of dormancy. Mining equipment revealed hidden weapons. Communication relays prepared to receive new instructions. Sleeper agents activated quantum transmitters. At Nexus Prime, Counselor Jecht reviewed the deployment of the third battle group with satisfaction. The humans would see the might of galactic civilization and submit. They always did. He never noticed that the station's main quantum communicator was now under human control. With 6 hours remaining, the last human diplomatic ship fled Council space, citing engine troubles that required immediate return to Earth. In reality, Commander Sarah Blake and her crew had spent the past month mapping every major Council installation in 3 sectors. Junk coordinates confirmed, Blake reported over Quantum Link. All primary targets are logged and verified. Kane nodded grimly. Excellent work, Commander. Return to Earth and prepare for Phase 2. The final hours crawled by. In the depths of space, Icarus ships powered up their quantum drives. On hidden asteroids, probe weapons armed their fusion warheads. Throughout human space, families said goodbye to loved ones who might not return. When the countdown reached 0, Kane looked around the command center one final time. These next few hours would determine whether humanity survived as a free species or died as a footnote in galactic history. Dr. Reeves, he said calmly, you may begin. She entered the activation codes with steady fingers, across 17 star systems. The night sky suddenly blazed with fire as humanity's hidden weapons revealed themselves. Communication relays exploded in chains of destruction. Military bases vanished in nuclear flame. The largest fleet in galactic history found itself blind, confused, and under attack by an enemy that wasn't supposed to exist. Council ejects flagship. The mighty devastation shuddered as its own computer systems turned against it. Warning lights flashed as the ship's artificial intelligence began systematically destroying critical systems. What is happening? Jack roared, his scales flashing with alarm colors. His bridge crew frantically worked their controls, but nothing responded. The ship's weapons turned inward, tearing the hull apart from the inside. It appears, said a calm voice over the communication system, that you are dying. Jack had just enough time to realize that the voice was speaking in unaccented galactic standard before his flagship exploded. The war for humanity's freedom had begun. Captain Lisa Rodriguez piloted her Icarus-class stealth ship through the wreckage of what had once been the Council's most important military base. The Fortress of Eternal Vigilance had guarded the approach to the crystalline home system for over 1,000 years. Now it was nothing but twisted metal and cooling plasma. Go 7 to command. She spoke into her communicator. Target 17 is confirmed destroyed. No survivors detected. Admiral Kane's voice crackled back through the quantum link. Acknowledged. Go 7. Proceed to Target 18 and maintain radio silence. Rodriguez engaged her ship's cloaking systems and vanished from all sensors. Around her, the Icarus fleet was systematically dismantling 3 millennia of galactic civilization, one target at a time. The war had been going on for 6 months now, though calling it a war was generous. Wars implied that both sides could fight back. What humanity was conducting was more like surgery, precise, calculated, and utterly ruthless. On the bridge of the human command ship Retribution, Admiral Kane studied the tactical displays with cold satisfaction. Red dots marked the locations of destroyed Council facilities. Blue dots showed the current positions of the Icarus fleet. Green dots indicated Council forces that had surrendered. Rather than face annihilation, green dots were becoming more common. Admiral, called Commander Park from the intelligence station. We're receiving a surrender offer from the Aquatic Union fleet in Sector 7. Kane didn't look up from his displays. Standard terms: complete disarmament, withdrawal to their home system, and full cooperation with human investigators. Yes, sir. Park paused. Admiral, that makes 18 Council fleets that have surrendered in the past month. At this rate, there won't be anyone left to fight. Kane finally raised his eyes. Good. The sooner this ends, the sooner we can start building something better. Dr. Reeves approached from her station at the rear of the bridge. The past 6 months had aged her considerably, but her eyes still held the sharp intelligence that had made humanity's victory possible. Admiral, the quantum analysis teams have finished their assessment of captured Council data cores. she reported. "The results are illuminating. Show me." Dr. Reeves activated a holographic display that showed the structure of galactic civilization. Instead of the 12 equal partners the Council claimed to be, the data revealed a hierarchy with the Vorthic at the top and various species arranged in descending levels of importance. "The Council was never a democracy," Dr. Reeves explained. "It was an empire with better public relations. The Vorthic controlled trade, technology, and military policy. The other species were essentially client states." Kane studied the display. How long had this been going on? Over 2,000 years. Every species that achieved interstellar travel was either absorbed into the Council's structure or destroyed. Humanity was supposed to be option 3, permanent containment. Ambassador Chun joined them at the display. The past months had transformed her from a grieving mother into something harder and more dangerous. Her diplomatic skills were now focused entirely on managing the surrender of galactic empires. "The interesting part," she said, "is how many species were forced into the Council system. Our intelligence teams have identified at least 30 civilizations that would prefer human leadership to Vorthic domination." Kane nodded grimly. The war had taught humanity a great deal about their enemies. The Council species weren't united by shared values or mutual respect. They were held together by fear and habit. Remove the Vorthic's military superiority, and the entire system collapsed. "Speaking of the Vorthic," Dr. Reeves said, "we've located their main fleet. What's left of it?" The display changed to show a star system at the edge of Council space. 17 massive ships hung in orbit around a barren world, their hulls scarred by previous battles with human forces. "Councilor Mervyn sent us a message," Ambassador Chun continued. "She's calling for peace negotiations. Says the Council is prepared to discuss terms." Kane almost smiled. "Almost. What terms did you offer?" "Unconditional surrender. Dissolution of all Council military forces. War crimes trials for everyone involved in the Europa massacre." Chun's voice was ice cold. She didn't seem enthusiastic. "Then, we continue operations until she becomes more enthusiastic." Captain Martinez materialized on the bridge as a hologram. His ship, Ghost One, was currently infiltrating the Vorthic home system. "Admiral, I have visual on the Vorthic capital city," he reported. "It's massive. Must be home to over 1 billion people." Kane frowned. "Captain, you are not authorized to attack civilian targets." "No, sir, but I'm seeing something else. Huge ships under construction in orbital shipyards. Looks like they're trying to build a new fleet." Dr. Reeves quickly accessed the intelligence networks. "Confirmed. The Vorthic are attempting to construct a final battle fleet using their last remaining industrial capacity." Kane considered this. The Vorthic had lost 90% of their military in the first month of the war. Their remaining ships were scattered and demoralized. But if they managed to build a new fleet, they might be able to prolong the conflict for years. "Dr. Reeves, what's the status of our quantum virus programs?" "Fully operational. We can take control of any Council computer system within minutes. Then let's give the Vorthic a lesson in human engineering." Kane turned to the communications officer. "Open a channel to all Council systems. Maximum broadcast power." The officer nodded. "Channel open, Admiral." Kane looked directly into the camera that would carry his words across the galaxy. When he spoke, his voice was calm and measured, but somehow that made his words more terrifying than any shout. "This is Admiral Kane of the Human Defense Force. For 6 months, you have experienced what happens when humanity decides to protect itself. You have seen your fleets destroyed, your bases eliminated, and your authority crumble. Despite this, some of you continue to resist." He paused, letting the words sink in across dozens of worlds. "To the Vorthac leadership and their remaining allies, You have 1 week to surrender unconditionally. After that time, we will demonstrate what total war really means. You thought the Europa massacre was surgical. You have no idea what surgical actually looks like. Kane gestured to Dr. Reeves, who activated her quantum virus protocols. Across the galaxy, every Council computer system simultaneously displayed the same image. Technical specifications for a human weapon called Planet Cracker. This device can split a world's crust and boil its oceans, Kane continued. We have 12 of them currently aimed at major Council worlds. We prefer not to use them, but if you force our hand, we will reduce your civilizations to radioactive dust. The threat was a bluff. Humanity had no planet crackers, but the Council had spent so long underestimating human capabilities that they couldn't tell truth from deception anymore. Ken ended the transmission and turned back to his staff. Dr. Reeves, how long before we have complete control of Council space? At current rate of surrender, approximately 3 weeks. The Aquatic Union and Crystalline Confederacy are already negotiating transition terms. The smaller species are falling in line. And the Vorthok? Ambassador Chung consulted her datapad. Their industrial capacity is down to 15% of pre-war levels. Their population is rioting in 12 major cities. Councilor Mervyn is apparently locked in her palace, afraid to appear in public. Kane nodded with satisfaction. The war was effectively over. What remained was the cleanup and the beginning of something new. Admiral called Commander Park from his station. We're receiving priority messages from Earth. The President wants to know when you're coming home. Kane looked out at the stars, watching human ships patrol space that had been forbidden to them for decades. Soon, those same ships would be exploring beyond Council space, making contact with species that had never known Vorthok tyranny. Tell the President we'll come home when the job is finished, he said. We're not just ending a war. We're beginning a new age. Through the bridge windows, the stars seemed brighter somehow, full of possibilities that hadn't existed 6 months ago. Humanity had learned what it was capable of when pushed too far. Now they would learn what they could build with that same determination and ruthless efficiency. The galaxy would never be the same. Councilor Mervyn stood alone in what had once been the great assembly hall of the Galactic Council. The crystal dome still floated in space above Nexus Prime, but its chambers were empty now. The other councilors were dead, in exile, or ruling over the broken remains of their former empires. Sunlight from the nearby star cast rainbow patterns through her crystalline form as she waited for the human admiral who had destroyed everything she had ever known. Around her, the hall's ancient decorations told the story of galactic civilization. Murals showing the Council's founding, statues of great leaders, tablets inscribed with laws that had governed the galaxy for thousands of years. All of it was now history. The hologram shimmered to life in front of her. And Admiral Kane appeared as if he were standing in the same room. He looked older than she remembered from their last communication, worn down by a year of constant warfare. But his eyes still held the cold determination that had made him the most feared human in the galaxy. Councilor Mervyn, he said with a polite nod. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting, Admiral Kane. Her voice resonated with harmonic frequencies that human translators had learned to interpret. I suppose congratulations are in order. You have achieved what no species has managed in 3 millennia. You have broken the Galactic Council. Kane showed no satisfaction at the words. The Council broke itself when it murdered 847 innocent people at Europa Station. We simply provided the consequences. Mervyn shifted, her crystalline structure catching the light in new ways. Of all the Council members, she had been the only one to suggest restraint after Europa. Not because she cared about human lives, but because she understood that humanity was different from other species the Council had contained. What happens now? She asked, "Will you rule as we did? Will you become the new overlords of the galaxy?" No. Kane's answer was immediate and firm. Humanity has no interest in ruling over others. We've seen what that kind of power does to those who wield it. Then, what do you want? Kane gestured, and the holographic display changed to show a map of known space. Instead of the rigid territorial divisions that had marked Council space, it showed something entirely different. Trade routes, communication networks, and cooperative agreements between dozens of species. "We want partnership," Kane said, "not dominance. We want a galaxy where species can develop their own technology, explore their own paths, and reach their own potential without interference from self-appointed guardians." Mervyn studied the display with growing amazement. "You're offering membership to species that were never part of the Council. The young races, the developing civilizations, the species you kept suppressed for your own benefit," Kane corrected. "Yes, we've already made contact with 17 civilizations that the Council denied access to advanced technology. They're eager to join a voluntary alliance instead of a forced hierarchy." The implications were staggering. For millennia, the Council had maintained control by limiting which species could access interstellar technology. New civilizations were either absorbed into the existing power structure or kept isolated until they could be properly managed. "What about the Council species?" Mervyn asked. "What becomes of us?" Kane's expression softened slightly. "That depends on your choices. Species that cooperate with the transition, that help us rebuild galactic civilization on a foundation of voluntary cooperation, will be welcomed as equals. Those that resist—" He didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone knew what had happened to the Vorthic. The Vorthic homeworld was now a dead rock, its surface glassed by human weapons after Councillor Jek's successors had refused final surrender terms. The population had been evacuated to colony worlds, but their civilization was effectively extinct. It served as a clear message to any other species considering resistance. "The Crystalline Confederacy would like to join your alliance," Mervyn said quietly. "Our people have suffered enough. We have no desire to repeat the Vorthic's fate." Kane nodded approvingly. "We'll need full disclosure of all Council archives, complete disarmament of your military forces, and cooperation with our war crimes investigations. In return, you'll have access to human technology, protected trade rights, and equal representation in the new galactic government." "Equal representation?" Mervyn couldn't hide her surprise. "You're offering former enemies the same voice as your allies?" "Democracy only works when everyone has a stake in the outcome," Kane replied. "Besides, your species has valuable knowledge about galactic history and interstellar engineering. We can use that expertise to build something better than what came before." The conversation was interrupted by a soft chime from Kane's end of the connection. He glanced at something off-screen and nodded to someone Mervyn couldn't see. "Counselor, I'm receiving reports from the Outer Rim. 3 more species have requested membership in the Human Alliance. The Tentacled Collective, the Machine Consciousness, and something called the Living Worlds Federation." Mervyn recognized those names. They were young civilizations that the Council had been monitoring for eventual contact. In other words, eventual conquest. Now they were choosing to ally with humanity instead. "How many species have joined so far?" she asked. 43 as of this morning. We expect to reach 60 by the end of the month." Kane smiled for the first time in their conversation. It seems the galaxy was ready for change. "We just provided the catalyst." The holographic display updated to show the current state of galactic politics. The Human Alliance controlled nearly half of known space, with new members joining daily. Former Council territories were either occupied by human peacekeeping forces or governed by transitional councils preparing for democratic elections. "Admiral," Mervyn said carefully, What guarantees do we have that humanity won't become the same kind of oppressor the Council was? Kane's expression grew serious. None. Power corrupts, and we're not immune to that temptation. That's why we're building checks and balances into the new system. No single species can dominate the Alliance. No military force can operate without oversight from multiple governments. He paused, staring out at something beyond the hologram's range. We've also established the Memorial Protocol. Every human ship, every military base, every government building displays the names of Europa Station's victims. We never want to forget what happens when power goes unchecked. Mervyn felt something she hadn't experienced in decades. Hope. Not hope for dominance or expansion, but hope for something genuinely better than what had come before. There's something else, Kane continued. We found records in the Vorthic archives about species the Council deliberately destroyed. Civilizations that were wiped out because they refused to submit. We're planning memorial sites for them as well. How many? Mervyn asked, though she suspected she didn't want to know the answer. 37 confirmed extinctions. Probably more that weren't properly documented. Kane's voice carried a weight of grief and anger. The Council called it maintaining galactic stability. We call it genocide. Mervyn's crystalline form seemed to dim as she processed this information. She had known the Council was ruthless, but she hadn't realized the full extent of their crimes. No wonder the younger species were so eager to join a human-led alliance. Admiral, what happens to those of us who served the Council? Are we all war criminals? Kane considered this carefully. That depends. Were you personally involved in ordering or carrying out attacks on civilian populations? No. My species specialized in resource management and trade coordination. Then you'll face truth and reconciliation hearings, not war crimes trials. The galaxy needs to know what the Council did and why. But we're not interested in revenge against every individual who served the system. The conversation continued for another hour, working out the practical details of the Crystalline Confederacy's integration into the human alliance. When it ended, Mervyn remained in the empty council chamber, contemplating the magnitude of the changes taking place. Through the crystal dome's transparent walls, she could see human ships patrolling the space around Nexus Prime. Soon, this station would be converted into a museum and memorial. The new galactic government would meet on Earth, in a building designed to accommodate representatives from dozens of different species. For the first time in 3,000 years, the galaxy was free. Free to grow, to explore, to become something greater than the sum of its parts. It had taken humanity's capacity for both mercy and ruthless violence to make that freedom possible. Mervyn thought about the 847 humans who had died at Europa Station. Their sacrifice had ultimately liberated billions of beings across the galaxy from Council oppression. It was an irony that would have amused them, she thought, if they could have known how their deaths would reshape galactic civilization. As she prepared to leave the empty council chamber for the last time, Mervyn made a personal vow. She would spend the rest of her extremely long life helping to ensure that the new aura humanity was building would never become the kind of oppressive system the Council had been. The galaxy deserved better. Elena Chun and the 846 other victims of Europa Station deserved better. And perhaps, if they worked hard enough, they could build a civilization worthy of their sacrifice.